multi-step conversions. So a multi-step conversion occurs when more than one conversion is needed to solve. So it's very similar to the last video, except we might have to do 2 or more conversions to get from what we're starting out with to then express it in an entirely different way. So let's go ahead and look. Example 1. So you need to put topsoil in the backyard. The area is 10 feet by 18 feet and 6 inches deep, which has a volume of 90 cubic feet. So we're going to find the amount of topsoil you need in cubic yards, as that is the unit you order topsoil. So let's go over this, right? So this is just telling us all the dimensions of the area, and then when you calculate that out, you get a volume of 90 cubic feet, because you need not only to fill it by the length and the width, but also the depth, right? So that's 90 cubic feet. So that, anything you see like cubic in a measurement, that tells you about a volume. So now we have 90 cubic feet, and we need to get to cubic yards. So cubic feet needs to get converted to cubic yards. So what do we know? We know that 3 feet is equal to 1 yard, right? So that means we can either go 3 feet over 1 yard or 1 yard over 3 feet, right? That's how we can use this relationship. And so notice that we actually only have to use one step, in order to get from feet to yards, right? But let's go ahead and write this out. So if we have 90 feet cubed, right? But let's go instead of that, let's go ahead and write feet times feet. So we're just write it 3 times, because that's what it means, right? We have 3 copies of feet. And then if we're going to go ahead and use this one, because we need to get the feet on the bottom to get rid of the units for feet, we have 1 yard on top. We go ahead and we're going to go ahead and cancel out this feet and this feet. But what do we notice? We still have 2 feet and only 1 yard. And we need cubic yards. So this means we need to do this 2 more times. So we have 1 yard over 3 feet times 1 yard over 3 feet. And so now we can go ahead and go feet, cancel out those feet, and cancel out these feet, and cancel out those feet. And then we're left with how many yards? 3, which is exactly what we need. So now we have set up our whole problem, right? Because our units tell us everything we need. So let always the units guide you here. So now that we have our cubic yards, we're going to go ahead and multiply what's on the top. So we get 90 times 1 times 1 times 1. So that's 90 over, then we multiply what's on the bottom. So 3 times 3 times 3. So that's 27. And that's cubic yards. Now, probably not the best way to call and put in an order is 90 over 27. So let's get our calculators out. So we got 90 divided by 27 gives us 3.3. So we're just going to go ahead and put 3.3, as we did 90 divided by 27. Cubic yards is what you're going to need for the backyard. Now, if you were probably going to place this order, you might want to do a little bit more, but at least now you get how we got there. So let's do the next example. So example 2. So while on a drive in Canada, you notice a road sign that says 150 kilometers until the next town. So convert 150 kilometers to miles to put that in perspective if you're used to miles, right? So we're starting with 150 kilometers. And we need to get to miles. So let's go ahead and start dealing with our relationships? Well, if we look at our conversion sheet, what do we know about kilometers? Well, we know 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So that's important. So if we know 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters, let's keep going with the meters. So now we have meters. Well, what else do we know? Well, we know 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter. Right, so centimeters are a much smaller unit than meters, so 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter. And why did I go to centimeters? Well, the reason is, and this is something you really should know, is that 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. So this is our way to go from metric system to our SI units. So this is the most important, probably one of the most important conversion rates to know. So if we know that, let's look back. If we can go from kilometers to meters, meters to centimeters, and then centimeters to inches, we're getting closer to than miles, because miles is in the SI units. So what do we know? We know that 12 inches is equal to 1 foot, so we just went from feet. So we just went from inches to feet, and now we need to go feet to miles. We know that 5,280 feet is equal to 1 mile. Now, if you are unsure about where to go with all of this, start writing out just these kind of conversions, and then you can kind of see which ones you're going to need, right? And once you do this long enough, you'll kind of get a sense for this. And so it's just going to take practice. So now we can go ahead and now set it all up, right? Because we notice that we're having to go from kilometers to meters to centimeters to inches, right? To feet to miles. So we have a multi-step process here. So let's go ahead and start there. So if we know, right, 150 kilometers is what we're starting with, let's go ahead and use this. So we're going to put the 1 kilometer on the bottom and the 1,000 meters on the top. Then we're going to go ahead and take this 1 meter, because we need to get this unit gone, right? So whatever we do here, we're going to put that next unit on the bottom to get rid of it. And we have this many steps. And then we're left with 100 centimeters on the top. So we did that one. Now if we need to get centimeters on the bottom, we're going to use the 2.54 centimeters to 1 inch. So we did that one. And then we have 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. And 5,280 feet is equal to 1 mile. And so we've set it up. And let's go ahead and look. So if we can get rid of kilometers here, we can get rid of meters, then we can get rid of centimeters, we can get rid of inches, we can get rid of feet, and we're left with miles, which is exactly what we want. So now we can go ahead and just go ahead and multiply. So we multiply what's on the top, and then we multiply what's on the bottom together. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Okay, so we can go 150 times 1,000 times 100 times 1 times 1 times 1. So that's just itself. And what do we get? Well, we got a really large number, right? So how many zeros are there? So 4, 5, 6. And then let's go ahead and then calculate what's on the bottom. We have 1 times 1, so that's just 1 times 2.54, and that's just 2.54 times 12 times 5,280, and we get also a very large number, right? 4. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take the top number and divide it by the bottom number. And what did we get? Well, we got 93.21. And this is in miles. So that's how far the next town is. So you can say 150 kilometers, or you can say about 93 miles. So that's how we can go from one to the other. Now let's do one final example. So example 3, we're going to convert 0.25 inches to millimeters. So this is going to be a little bit less than the last one. So if we're going from inches now to millimeters. And what's the most important conversion to know between our units to the metric system? Because anytime you see probably meters or anything like that, you know we're going into the metric system. So we need to know that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So let's go ahead and let's think about this. So we have 1 inch and 2.5 centimeters. Well, that means we're getting really close to millimeters, right? So we know 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So we can go from inches then to centimeters. And then we can go from centimeters to millimeters. And what's the conversion between centimeters to millimeters? Well, we know 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So now we've done all our conversions. Right, we're only going to use these two to go in order from inches to millimeters. So 0.25 inches, right? So let's go ahead and put the inches on the bottom, put 2.54 centimeters on the top. Then what's next, right? We need to get rid of centimeters. So we're going to go ahead and go 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters on the top, right? So this is just our conversion, so we're using. So now let's go ahead and cancel out. So we can get rid of inches, and we can get rid of centimeters. And we're left with millimeters, which is exactly what we want. So now we can just go ahead and multiply everything on the top. And then we notice that on the bottom is just 1 times 1. So it will just be 1 on the bottom. So we have 1.25 then times 2.54 times 10. And what do we get? We get 6.35 millimeters over 1. So we can just say we have 6.35 millimeters as our solution. So this is the same thing, right, as 0.25 inches. So if we were to say this, right, or this, these mean the exact same measurement. We just say it differently, right? In either millimeters or inches, it's just a different way to measure it.